We now move on to the panel discussion, metal and all. For the chairpersons, we are really honored to have the esteemed presence of Dr. S.S. Agarwal, sir. Although he needs no introduction, but Dr. S.S. Agarwal, sir, is the chairman, Mahavir Jaipuriya Rajasthan Hospital, chairman of Swasthya Kalyan Group. He is managing trustee of Puranmal Phula Devi Memorial Trust, trustee of International Network for Cancer Treatment and Research India, and trustee of Jaipur Calgary Charitable Eye Hospital and Research Center. We are honored to have you, sir, and we would like you to chair this session. I also request Dr. N.K. Madhav, sir, to please chair the session. Dr. Viren Singh, sir, is the leading asthma specialist of our country, working as president. Retired General, Major General Dr. Vijay Saraswat, sir. Probably he wasn't able to join us. He's there. Welcome, sir. He is Chief Operating Officer and Senior Consultant, Rajasthan Hospital, Jaipur, and specializes in critical care and anesthesiology. He has a vast experience of 37 years in the field, heading many military and private institutions. He has experience of 37 years under Government of India. Dr. R.M. Batwara, sir. Dr. Sarvesh Agarwal, sir. I would like the chairpersons to chair this session, and I now hand over the mic to the moderator and the organizer of this wonderful conference, Dr. Dinesh Mathur, sir. Sir is HOD and Senior Consultant, Department of Dermatology, Rajasthan Hospital, Jaipur.
Good afternoon. Once again, welcome to this beautiful conference. And this is probably one of the first hybrid conference in this COVID era. And when I was designing this conference of contact dermatitis, I thought I had some this cardiac problem couple of months back, and I had a stunting in my this thing. And here in this my hospital by Dr. Ravindra Rao, I thought that, and my dentist Dr. D.K. Gupta, he puts on a lot many these things, metals in this. Metals, they do cause cross sensitization, they do cause allergy. So I thought that I'll design a session, and we'll take the expert opinion of cardiologist, we'll take the opinion of orthopedician. We have got Professor and Head of Orthopedics of SMS Medical College, Dr. Narendra Joshi. Please kindly come over here. Dr. Ravindra Rao, who is the Director and Chairman of the Rajasthan Hospital Cardiology. Please come over here. And I'll read on the, you read on this thing. And who's there? Dr. Veena Acharya, she is the gynecologist of this thing. Or kaun hai? And Dr. D.K. Gupta is already there. Or kaun hai? Dr. Raghav Shah. Dr. Raghav Shah is where? Ha, come on. I thought Dr. Raghav Shah will tell us about the this thing, psychological aspects of the contact dermatitis patient. So, without wasting any time, quickly I'll invite Dr. Ravindra Rao. Dr. Ravindra Rao, he is the Chief Interventional Cardiologist of Angioplasty and expert in structural heart disease and expert in complex angioplasty. He is really an expert throughout the country. He is a son of the soil, and I have seen him from SMS. Of course, initially from this thing. And he is MD, DM Cardiology, and then he got training in the Washington University School of Medicine. So, Dr. Ravindra Rao, you please come and let us tell what metals you are introducing one by one, and what are their side effects.
Thank you very much, sir. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Dr. Dinesh Mathur, sir, for organizing such a fantastic conference. And also, thank you all the delegates and faculty and esteemed doctors and panelists who took time and made this conference a success. Definitely in the era of COVID, it's a challenge to organize a physical conference, but congratulations, sir, for the hybrid meeting. Sir wanted me to speak on metals in the heart. And my disclosure is that I am a cardiologist and I am a misfit in the crowd. But let me try to show some relevant slides. So I'm just going to give you an overview that what all types of metals are inserted inside the heart and the blood vessels. Here is just an example. If you look at the metals which are there in the heart, you see these wires which are there after the post-bypass or a post-open heart surgery. Then this is an example. I'm replacing a mitral valve without open heart surgery. It's called a transcatheter mitral valve replacement. It's called a transcatheter mitral valve replacement, where we would go from a femoral vein without any open heart surgery, without any cutting, and we would put a new valve inside the old valve. So you see there's already metal there, and then on top of it, there's another metal. These are just some videos. I'm not going to go into too much of detail. But here's an example where I've replaced the valve, and now I'm closing the atrial septum defect, again with an ASD device. So you see, again, there is a metal in the interatrial septum, and this is the mitral valve in this particular patient, and this is how it looks like on a 3D transesophageal echo. So again, and these are the videos. So again, you see this patient has so much of metal. There is a transesophageal echo. We go from the femoral vein, put the new valve inside the previously implanted ring. This is the first case in the South Asia where a mitral valve has been replaced inside the ring, surgically implanted ring. And this is how it looks like on a 3D transesophageal echo. You would see the metallic frame, and inside this there will be tissue leaflets. What about aortic valve replacement? Again, you would see here is an aortic valve which is replaced without open heart surgery. We would go from the femoral artery and we would implant the valve inside the native severe aortic stenosis. So, lot of metal. I'm going to go and describe this metal also in the end. And here's another example of a patient in whom we are replacing the aortic valve without any surgery. Again, you see so much of metal, right? Gradually this metal gets endothelized and the leaflets are left to function with. So this is how the aortic valve replacement looks like without open heart surgery. And here you would see in this patient, he already has a mitral valve which is a metallic valve, and now I'm replacing an aortic valve again without open heart surgery, which is called transcatheter aortic valve replacement. And you can see so much of metal inside the heart in direct contact with the blood. But this is the beauty of the procedure. We do the TAVI, and this is how the patient looks like in the evening, sitting in the bed having his dinner. Nobody can imagine the valve has been replaced, and patient talks and walks the very next day. Sometimes we would do an angioplasty and a valve replacement in the same sitting. This is the smallest. There's no incision at all, and this is how we would go from the femoral artery and replace the aortic valve. This is the tricuspid valve being replaced, and this is a very elderly patient, 93-year-old. We did an aortic valve replacement without open heart surgery, and patient walks very next day. This is the print with the permission from the patient. To highlight this, sometimes age is just a number. If a patient is an active person, mobile, doing all his daily activities, mentally fully alert, we don't have any right that we should not treat such a patient. This is a slide of a mitral valve repair without open heart surgery. These are the two clips which we will keep inside the heart, and the mitral valve replacement has been done. I just copied this slide from internet. Here is a heart with 67 stents published in Journal of American College of Cardiology. So you see metals everywhere. This is an ICD lead. And this slide is also to break the myth, you cannot have more than 3 stents, nothing like that. So there is a stent with 67 heart published in Journal of American College of Cardiology. All his bypass grafts were occluded, so stents in bypass, stents in all the artery, and an ICD lead. This is the heart where I've replaced double valve. This was the country's first transcatheter double valve replacement, again without open heart surgery, and this is how these metals look inside the heart. So here's again, we would repair an aneurysm without surgery. This is the metal inside the abdominal aorta for an abdominal aortic aneurysm. So you must be wondering how a patient behaves to all these metals, and that's where we need your input. So points to ponder. Can such a metal inside the heart cause allergic contact dermatitis? Nickel is the most common metal allergen, and all our stents, they contain cobalt, nickel, and molybdenum. Now, nitinol stent, the stent which you saw for the abdominal aortic aneurysm and for the aorta, contains 55% titanium and 45% nickel. You know, when sir asked me to speak on it, I was wondering, sir, main kya karunga? This will be such an irrelevant talk. And then I started reading about it. I was surprised to know there are case reports where a stent has to be removed just because patient developed severe dermatitis. So I was of the opinion contact dermatitis means that metal should touch your skin, but not anymore. So we do these ASD, VSD device closures. Without surgery, it contains nitinol. Again, there are anecdotal reports that this can also cause contact dermatitis. So, the points to discuss, and maybe you all can educate us that we never thought of this any problem that the skin can be infected by such things.
We can always do a patch testing and tell you that whether he is allergic to nickel or cobalt or not. And then probably we can, that is one thing which came instant in my mind.
But I'm surprised nowhere in the world is doing this, but that's a very good point.
No, but we can do it.
Yeah.
Let us be
Yeah,
pioneer.
we can start that. So thank you very much for the kind attention, and thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
I
Thanks
just
a
wanted
lot.
to lay some, platform to discuss about metals in the heart.
So from next time onwards, whenever you do a metal surgery, just take 3 days with us, and we will do the patch test, so that at least we do have some record that yes, all right, he's not allergic to nickel or cobalt. He may develop, this is the cross sensitivity. Normally,
Not done. Even if the patch test is not done, you can take just history, clinical history of patient, whether he is having any contact allergy to locally wearing these bangles, because they contains the wristwatches, they contains nickel and cobalt. So only history can reveal the things before putting these stunts.
That's a very good input, sir. So, there are stents. There is a stent which contains cobalt chromium. There is a stent which will contain titanium. So, all nitinol-based stents, they are self-expandable stent. So, they contain nickel and titanium. So, for them, we don't have an alternative. But for the heart stent, stents which push it into the heart, they have an alternative. For them, for those patients, we have an alternative. We can use cobalt chromium.
excellent, fantastic knowledge there. So we do have a danger of having contact cross sensitization. Now we invite Dr. Narendra Joshi, who is a senior professor and head department of orthopedics, SMS Medical College, and his main area of interest is arthroplasty, arthroscopy, and deformity correction. Dr. Narendra, would you like to tell us what kind of metals you are using in the
Same as Dr. Rao has said, the same combination that most of the time it's stainless steel implants which we are using, and 60 to 70% is contains iron, and rest of the by mineral like nickel, cadmium, and molybdenum. And because the stainless steel is commonly used because of the cheaper implants, so most of the time it is the metal implants we are using are made of stainless steel.
Any idea how much of total metal must have been introduced in the people in the population? Just in vague guess, because that question I asked my Dr. Veena Acharya to tell about the
I
copper.
give you some statistics. Around there are 20,000 orthopedic surgeons are there. If we think that one implant per day by per surgeon, so it comes around 2 crores implant per year. That is a huge amount. Earlier study shown that the percentage of metal allergy due to implants is 1%. But as its knowledge is grown up, and because of you people, now we come to that point that at the times what we are thinking that might be infection. It is not the infection. It is the metal allergy which is causing all the problem.
And one more thing which I would like to have a comment on you, that we dermatologists have seen after you are doing total knee replacement, TKR, and the incision of TKR the patient develops a very typical eczema on half of the side of the incision. Can you comment on
Very true, because we have very less knowledge about eczema. We think everything like infection, because infection is very dreaded in implant surgery, like especially in joint replacement. Once it is infected, then it's a disaster. So we were thinking in terms of infection. But what happens? We diagnose it infection by the presence of, is there any discharge or anything we get culture sensitivity done, it comes out to be negative. And we thought probably due to patient is under antibiotic. So there is a sterile fluid is there.
So again, probably the take-home message is the same, that you can also, you are sitting in SMS, and SMS has got a big, huge department of dermatology. You can ask them to do a patch test of that. Because
No.
that is a good.
Definitely. But nickel, as you know, everybody knows.
Nickel and cobalt, they are the commonest allergens.
Commonest allergens.
And, the commonest is Parthenia hysterophorus, but after that is the nickel and this thing. And that is what we have included in this today's special day cover
And
also.
one more thing is there, apart from the skin lesions, the aseptic loosening is one of the cause of allergic reaction of these implants. And one more thing that the skin allergy can be caused by the bone cement, methyl methacrylate. And another is biodegradable implants.
Sorry?
That can also lead to biodegradable implants.
Biodegradable implants.
Especially in arthroscopy. We use biodegradable screw, and at times after fixation we feel that there is some sterile fluid is coming, or there is a discharge is there is no bacteria grown. Ultimately we have to remove it.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else would you like to comment over it?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So means cardiologist, orthopedician, and then comes the gynecologist. Let me invite Dr. Veena Acharya, who is a professor, ex-professor and head of gynecology at SMS Medical College, Jaipur. मेरे को बड़ा मतलब मैं घबरा रहा हूँ उनका इंट्रोडक्शन देते हुए. आप
ये मैडम दिनेश जी की धर्म पत्नी है, इसलिए इनको डर ज्यादा लगता है.
That is the problem.
So I just said that I am doing a session, and probably the gynecologists are the maximum. You must be introducing copper tea, right? That is also a metal. I mean, copper. We always tell that copper vessels के अंदर पानी पीजिए. Copper vessels में अगर ठीक करे तो vitiligo को ठीक होता है. Then I asked them how much copper you introduce into the half of the world. Can you just give this thing? Have you? Do you have a presentation, please?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dr. N.K. Mastab and everybody. I am thankful to Dr. Dinesh Mathur. He also included me in this session, and he want to tell me what type of copper you are using. Is there any skin reaction? Have you ever observed anything? So copper tea we are using as a intrauterine, copper containing intrauterine device we are using as a contraceptive method in childbearing age. And he asked me how many copper you are using and how much copper till now you have used. So intrauterine devices we are using almost 5 decades, and the copper containing IUCDs are in our population, mostly the 20% women are acceptable to the intrauterine devices. Most of the people are using, ladies, the other contraceptive, oral contraceptive, condoms and this. So we have calculated yesterday, almost 160 million women having the copper intrauterine devices in their uterus, if we calculate them. And these two girls have helped me in calculating, because he asked these things, and how much copper they have in their uterus, almost 1 crore and 4 lakhs copper in their uterus. So is there any skin reaction or anything? Luckily, we don't across any type of reaction in women, or almost they have suffering from the copper reaction or skin dermatitis or contact dermatitis. They must reach to you people rather than to we people, because they have the...
Probably we are not being able to correlate it.
So,
there must have been something.
Yeah. So what I say, intrauterine devices hardly cause the systemic dermatitis, because patients are not coming to us after copper T insertion or allergic reaction with copper containing IUCDs, because there are other, now we are using the hormone containing intrauterine devices. The progesterone hormone containing intrauterine devices we are using. So contact dermatitis, copper sulfate is also uncommon in our day-to-day practice, and copper is a weak contraceptive device. So how many type of copper tea we are using? Because each copper tea has a different type. I don't want to teach everything, but just different type of IUCDs, and each have the efficiency for 3 years, 5 years or 7. And this is 10 years copper tea supplied by the government of India, that is 380A, and we use this commonly to every patient. But after searching this on the Google, I come to across only 1 or 2 studies. They showed that there is a reaction in the 1.4%. Women are showing the contact dermatitis or anything. But they have done the patch test. In all the patients, who are using the copper containing intrauterine. And out of this 1.4% positive copper reaction, only one patient developed the generalized dermatitis, and that patient was also cured after the removal of the copper intrauterine devices. But I just want to share only 2 or 3 interesting cases. One patient who have the copper intrauterine devices, but she went to dermatologist and she developed the generalized contact dermatitis, eczema, and anything. And what patient have even the edema of the eyelids. That is, patient was the endometriosis and they have the skin reactions. And luckily, the dermatologist asked clinical history, are you using any contraceptive, any device or anything? So one thing very important for the dermatologist, the message from my side that all dermatologists, if you are treating the women of reproductive age group, ask the history of the copper intrauterine devices. That is the one thing you must ask. So that patient developed the generalized edema, and after the removing the copper T, patient was completely normal and all the symptoms will subside. Another patient had very typical history. She developed the premenstrual, recurrent, self-limiting skin reactions and eruptions, and that will be very cycling, 4 or 5 cycle. And dermatologists were very much upset. They used corticosteroids, everything, but she was not responding. Then again they asked any history and they referred to the gynecologist. And after the removal of the patient, you won't be surprised that all the symptoms will be subside. So that is, and third case also very interesting, that also the women of she also have this generalized urticaria with the skin lesions, with the vaginitis, and she was also having, and the same thing, she also not responding to the corticosteroid, antagonist and anything. And after, so only 3 cases I found on the Google who have some reaction with the copper T insertion. So that is the study, and after asking so how much copper still women in their uterus and how much they have reaction, we hardly come across with that. Or if they have any reaction, they went to dermatologist. So that is the 2 part separately. So my carry home message is to everybody that the copper cause very less allergen to the female, but how it causes the allergy, that the pathophysiology behind it, that the copper T which is inside the uterus, it is absorbed from the mucous membrane of the uterus, and through the lymph and blood it goes to the skin and it acts as a skin irritant. In that patient of endometriosis, after the biopsy, they found proliferative and the eosinophilic lymphocytes much more in the uterus, and they reach to the skin and they act as an antigen and they may cause the generalized urticaria. That must be the pathophysiology. So all the dermatologists, if they are treating the reproductive age group, they must ask the clinical history, and because routinely we are not doing the patch test. But if they have any problem, then we go for it.
No,
Thank you so
pure
much.
we do it. Thank you very much. And now the next specialist which we have asked is Dr. D.K. Gupta. He is an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. He is head of Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery of Government Dental College, formerly in Jaipur. He was a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of Rajasthan University of Health Sciences. He is a renowned dental surgeon, Principal Government Dental College and first Dean Faculty of the Dentistry of RUHS. He is also a member of Dental Council of India since 2004. So welcome Dr. Gupta.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mathur sir, for allowing me to present in this august gathering my experience with metals in the oral cavity. As we go back in 17th century, the metal was used in anterior teeth for aesthetics, the gold and the silver. So the use of metal, you will be surprised to know that every 6th or 7th person in the population is having some metal or its derivative in the oral cavity put by a dentist. So if you calculate, there may be tons and tons of metal that is being parked in the oral cavity by the dentist. Actually, the metal, I don't know, you know better, metal doesn't cause directly the allergy. It is present in the oral cavity, there is electrolyte fluid, the saliva is there, the pH of the saliva is varying from 5 to 5.5 to 7.5. This leads to the shedding of electron from the metal, which leads ionized metal element which circulates in the fluid and got attached to a protein from the body and form heptane, which is recognized by the T cell and causing the allergy. I think that might be the pathophysiology of the metal allergy. The sex predilections, very interesting. Only 3% of the males are suffering with metal allergy, but the incidence is very high in females, up to 20% as far as the silver amalgam fillings are concerned. The silver amalgam fillings, it contains mercury, silver, tin and zinc. It is the most durable filling material which lasts, I have seen 20 to 30 years even, the silver filling lasts. And it is also the cost effective. But because of the mercury toxicity, because of the allergy, because of the aesthetics, the use of these fillings are reduced a lot. And in most of the clinics, they are not doing silver fillings nowadays. Regarding the metal used in the dentistry, the most common is the caps or the crowns in the oral cavity after the root canal treatments. After missing one teeth, the bridges are formed, which are mainly of metal. As we have already discussed, the nickel, chrome is the main element of the metal which is present in the oral cavity. The gold is also used, the palladium is also used, ceramic with the metal, or stainless steel. These all metals are very frequently used in the oral cavity, which causes allergies. To improve the aesthetics, the malocclusion of the teeth, we use braces. They are also made up of stainless steel. The wire on it sometimes are of nickel and nickel and titanium. They can also cause allergy. In trauma, everybody knows that the intermaxillary fixation is done by the arch bars and wires. These are made up of stainless steel, and nowadays people don't want intermaxillary fixation, they want mobility of the jaws. So internal fixation of the jaws are very common, and the plates earlier were used of stainless steel, but now they have been replaced by the titanium, and still there are allergies noted with the titanium also. Everybody now wants fixed teeth, and I think the implant is the solution, and the use of implant. Every dentist wants to do implants because of definitely the economic reasons, but patient also wants the fixed tooth, and the implants are usually made up of titanium, and we see in some patients there is loosening of the implants, the failure of the titanium implants, which is said to be a very biocompatible metal. It is not common allergies with the titanium. So as the orthopedician also, Dr. Joshi also said that we thought it is because of some infection or because of some problem with the patient, but it may be because of the allergy to the titanium. We called these patients the cluster patients. The sign and symptoms, we already know there is redness around the fillings and the caps, we call it erythema. There may be labial edema. In this patient was having anterior tooth which was a porcelain and metal with porcelain, and he had labial edema with crusting, and we thought that this metal is the cause. We removed that metal and sent the patient to Dr. Mathur. He treated that patient, and now we replace this with zirconia crown and patient is all right. So the allergy is very common with the metals. To strengthen the upper denture, we sometimes use metal bases, and you can see on the right side, this is the metal petechial hemorrhages or ecchymosis in the palate, which is because of that metal present in the upper denture. Stomatitis, recurrent ulcers adjacent to the filling, adjacent to the crown and bridges are very common. Angular cheilitis, this is a child patient having multiple silver fillings, and he has a recurrent attacks of angular cheilitis. In spite of medicine, we give medicine, the patient becomes all right. Again, he developed the angular cheilitis. We replace all the silver fillings with composite and glass ionomers, and patient is relieved. Oral lacrimal planus is said to be autoimmune disorder, but we have seen that this occurs adjacent to the crown and bridge cases near the on the mucosa, on the buccal mucosa, mostly on the retromolar area, and one of the cause of this lacrimal planus is the metal which is present in the oral cavity. Burning mouth, lot of patient after doing crown and bridge, after fillings, complaint of burning sensation on the tongue, on the buccal mucosa. It may be because of the allergy to these metals. In spite of these intraoral symptoms, because of the metal allergy, there might be the symptoms on the feet, on the hands, and all over the body, the eruptions, the eczema. We are lucky that we have an alternative material, so we changes all the silver fillings in those cases with the aesthetics fillings or the glass ionomers, the composites, and the GICs, the glass ionomer cements. In the cap and in the crowns, in the caps, earlier the nickel chrome was the predominant metal which was used for this. Now the zirconia has come, and this is very much comparable with the zirconia. There is a compressive strength, and the strength is comparable with the metal. It is a transitional metal. It is not a metal. It is the zirconia is MRI friendly, and with the latest technology, we can scan the patient's mouth, and these zirconia come in blocks. We put this data to the automatic milling machines, and within few minutes, the crown is prepared. So in the single step, in the single visit, you can give the crowns to the patient, and definitely the zirconia is the least causing allergy material. You all very know how to know about the allergy. By the Melissa test, by the patch test, we can identify the allergies to the metals. Now the question is, already the answer is we have got, before going for any major fillings or going for fillings, it is okay, it is not very costly. But if you are putting an implant, it is in the lakhs of rupees are expended by the patient. So definitely we must go for screening test before putting titanium implants. This is very good. I think we should start this screening test before doing major implants in the oral cavity. My stress is that to deal all these cases, a multidisciplinary approach by joining the dentist and by joining the dermatologist in treating out these metal allergy cases. Baki, we are not afraid. You are there to save us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Dr. Gupta, please. And with all these metals and their reactions and tons of metals inside, people have to leave their profession many a times. Allergic contact dermatitis patient of tie and dye industry and cement workers and all those. So what kind of psychological or psychiatric manifestations they have got? We have got Dr. Raghav Shah with us, and Dr. Raghav Shah is DM in addiction addiction psychiatry and director on consultant psychiatrist center of our Mahavir Jaipur Rajasthan Hospital. He is the first and currently the only psychiatrist with DM in addiction psychiatry practicing in the state of Rajasthan. That gives me a little bit कई बार डर लगता है कहीं जो है ना वो नहीं हो. But he has got a beautiful ward, and मैंने ऊपर जाकर के जब when I see references in the psychiatry ward, I tell Dr. Raghav, मैंने कहा इच्छा करती पागल हो जाऊँ तुम्हारे इसमें भर्ती हो जाऊँ. So Dr. Raghav, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for giving this opportunity to talk in this forum. So, when we talk about psychiatry or mental health, compared to other branches of medicine, this is not very straightforward that a metal is irritating your skin and then finally a illness develops through T cell response, or maybe I'm forgetting something. So in our branch, many a times 2 plus 2 is not 4, it can be 4 for somebody, then 6 for somebody, 8 for somebody. So when we discuss metals in context of contact dermatitis, occupational dermatosis and psychiatry, we need to understand first about the stress response. Having some problematic lesion on your skin, especially on your face or any part which is publicly visible, can be a huge problem for somebody. We have seen people even having psychotic breakdowns because of these kind of lesions on their face. Many times young girls prevent either with a manic episode in response to a few days of depression after having acne which was not resolving on face, and maybe somebody can have a psychotic response that somebody did something which led to this kind of a reaction. Now, beginning with a scary situation generally helps to arouse attention, so I discussed about these psychotic breakdowns which are much less common, but you need to be aware that they can be possible, because a problem with one's appearance, especially in growing up years when the personality is not stable and developing, can be a huge stress. But much more common are the things of depressive disorders and anxiety spectrum problems, and these are generally presented initially as a stress response. So stress response is something which mostly improves with the precipitating factor going away. So if the skin condition improves, generally the stress goes away and the psychiatric symptoms which present along with that to you as a dermatologist will go away by themselves. But in people whose reaction or the stress response is unequal to the stressor, maybe with a very minor lesion they have a very huge response which is not going away even with improvement, or sometimes it transforms into some long-term psychiatric issue like anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder, needs to be dealt with sensitively in your domain, and wherever required reference or a consultation can be taken, because especially for problems which can be long lasting, psychological elements are commonly seen to arise and propagate. So what I wanted to emphasize through this was that rather than any very intricate neurological mechanism by which nickel or lead or cadmium can cause a psychiatric or a neuropsychiatric manifestation as well as a dermatological manifestation, much more common is the stress pathway which leads to psychiatric issues. Second thing regarding metals, as every other speaker has talked about the metals in their disciplines, most commonly used metal in psychiatry with very good effectiveness is lithium. So lithium has been in use in psychiatry for very long, and the problem with lithium is it doesn't pay. Lithium is a salt like sodium chloride, very cheap to produce. No pharma company is interested in promoting lithium, but lithium all along has been a very good and a stable psychiatric treatment which came into picture as a serendipitous discovery that somebody improved with some waters which had more lithium content in them. So lithium till now is a very good treatment for bipolar disorders, depression with suicidal intents, many other conditions which have significant mood swings. And as far as in our practice, lithium as a cause for skin problems is rare. I think it cannot be attributed directly to any skin lesions or other things, so it's quite safe. And lithium, as we are discussing it, so just in one line, the major issue has been lithium monitoring, because of which most doctors as well as psychiatrists have been a little wary of using lithium, because as the guidelines mention, especially in Western countries, regular monitoring weekly initially, then monthly, then 3 monthly, which is very cumbersome for a patient to do. But clinical monitoring is very much possible, and especially in scenarios like India, where a very significant medico-legal part to it is not there, and patients and doctors are generally having good personal rapports other than their professional thing. So lithium is a very good option. So that is about the metals. And regarding any other technological thing, so I don't see psychiatry on that interface as other branches. And the only thing where we directly come in contact with the metal is electroconvulsive therapy, ECTs, and to some extent where we use biofeedbacks, but these are very less times of contact, and generally the coppers which are used in electroconvulsive therapy, we have seen rarely causing any skin reaction because we generally use electric conductive jelly along with them, and they are very seconds of contacts. So that is about psychiatry and metals. And if anything to discuss or sir has any comments to it, I'll be happy to address.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aga. It was indeed a very excellent information given by you. And I thank all my panelists and all the chairpersons for that.